Evans, and helping us guide you through our selection of Wednesday's papers, I'm joined by the Pickard and Riker of the comedy circuit, Leo Kearse and Roger Moncas. I'm afraid I don't understand that reference. I believe it may be something to do with 90s sci-fi. Anyway, let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. We will start with the Daily Mail as ever, and Rishi, I'll fix appalling Asylum farce. That grim news is offset by a cheerful image of the young royals marching through one of their territories. Wednesday's Telegraph has Sunak, and I will stop those who get here by cheating. That has a slightly less cheerful image. The Guardian have gone with 33 hours inside an NHS on the brink. Why they chose 33, I don't know. Inflation, I guess, usually 24, isn't it? Wednesday's Mirror has nurses. We're doing this for you. Not sure you are. And once again, the Royals in a park. Wednesday's Times, lives are at risk. Nurses leaders tell union chiefs. Yeah, you could probably find some consensus on that issue. Wednesday's Express, can we have our country back, please? That, I am sure, references Sunak's commitment to shaking up the illegal immigration issue. And Wednesday's Sun has You've Lost It, Lynch. Harry Cole there coming in hard for the Peaky Blinder in the front of the RMT. Star, finally, Border Collie crashes car. One paper at least not afraid to tackle the big issues. Those were your front pages. So let's kick off our deep dive into the front pages with the Daily Mail. Who has got that one for? Is that where you?
That's me.
Leo.
Yeah. So Rishi Sunak says he's going to fix the asylum system. He says it's not fair, it's not right, and it needs to be fixed. So he's got a deal with Albania. There's going to be somebody's paying Albania money to improve their economy, and also have people at the airport to tell people not to get on the plane, I assume. And also he's bringing back the sort of hostile environment attitude to immigration. So if you're an illegal immigrant, you won't be able to get a bank account, which will mean it'll be more difficult for you to get work. You'll have to get work cash in hand, like my mate Bernardo came over from Brazil, kept getting deported, kept coming back in through Ireland.
The comedy industry used to be run cash in hand. That was You only basically understood gigs that paid in cash. I never trusted anything that went through the books, but it's all changed now.
Yeah, absolutely.
World, the whole economy is completely different now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Bar work. I remember being a student walking away with cash in my pocket, but of course now that's a prosperous nation.
Yeah, and of course we talk about other trades not getting a pay rise. Comedy hasn't had a pay rise since about 1992.
Cannot be unionised.
This is what's preposterous, of course, to ask three self-employed comics their opinions about public sector paying.
Talk about people who run a jewellery stall in Camden Market. I actually lost my wallet recently and had to try and I had cash, but my cars were being replaced. I didn't realise the number of places you literally cannot pay. You cannot buy. Pret-a-manger will no longer take cash. Lots of pubs in the West End will no longer take cash. You're eliminated from saying
we should probably get back to the story about the asylum system.
So, I love the way you give it you voice yes in Asylum.
It's
like a phloem in Asylum.
Like an Asylum phone.
Yes.
That thing that you play with Patrick Moore. But so Keir Starmer's come out and said the majority of people coming across as illegal coming across in the dinghies qualify as refugees. It's like, obviously that's why it needs to be fixed. These people aren't genuine asylum seekers, a lot of them. I mean, for a start, they're coming from France. They've come through a lot of safe countries to get here, and a lot of them started off in Albania, which is perfectly safe and probably a lot nicer than the UK. I don't know if they've actually seen what Middlesbrough looks like before they come over here.
Somebody who went back, wasn't there, recently? They came over, they were from Ukraine, and they were repositioned in Nottingham, and they stayed there for about another day, and they went, no, actually,
I'll take my chances in the Donbass.
When they start getting put up in pontins, I think a lot of people will be applying to get
But there's been some very nice hotels have been repurposed.
The amount of money being spent, so £5.5 million is being spent every day.
Which is coming out of the foreign aid budget predominantly as well, so it's...
there's an upside.
It's completely undermining our soft power throughout the world.
As long as it's denying water to people in a desert region, that's
a concern.
This is just rhetoric at this stage, but it's important to hear some decisive rhetoric at least, isn't it? Because you do get the feeling the political classes seem to be quite happy with the proposition that we just allow people to come in until the whole population pressure is, is like universally, until the water levels are equalised.
But even here, Rishi Sunak is adopting the passive tense, isn't he? It's a problem, it needs to be fixed.
Orwell frowns. Avoid the passive.
Well, Home Secretaries for the last few years have been making the right noises, and yet nothing has actually got done.
Yeah.
He's making himself a hostage to fortune, isn't he, by making promises with 2 years before an
We'll
election.
come on to
if
some fairly
nothing's done, then
convincing
surely it will
statistical evidence that he's already a hostage to fortune. I think coming later up. But let's have a look at the Sun next, Roger. We're going to get through these before the break. But
yes, the Sun leads on Mick Lynch with the charming archetypal classic Sun headline. You've lost it, Lynch. That's right. It's got to be said in that voice. There's only one way to say that.
Lynch.
And they pictured him, of course, with his silly flat cap on. And clearly it's a bit of a hatchet job, isn't it? But time will tell.
Did you just see his hat? Did you just describe his hat?
Hat job.
Right.
A checked hat job. I remember when Bet Lynch was the more likely candidate for the front page of the Sun, but they have always, of course, come out hard against about troublemakers. But I didn't see it, but I heard on one of our rivals' breakfast TV show this morning, Lynch really did kind of seem to be almost moving into militant Arthur Scargill, we're going to bring down the government mode, you know, rather than just kind of we want what's best for our members or whatever.
Watch this space. I'm sure this will develop because, I mean, in fairness to him, every interviewer is taking such a hostile tone with him. He has begun to lose his rag, and I'm not surprised.
And it wasn't that long ago, I feel in the summer, he was regarded as being kind of an old school but fairly authentic sort of voice of the working people, you know, as against the progressive.
Yeah, but the working people don't want to do any work and they want to get loads of money. I'm a working person. That's my dream job. I'd love to be a train driver. I'd love to get 80 grand a year to sit on my bum. I guess I'm sitting down right now.
Only in
just
cash.
pressing a button. And you go, if it was in cash, in suitcases, like a union leader gets. Man, trains don't even have a steering wheel. How can you be asking? They should have been replaced by robots. The thing is, a lot of the demands of the unions aren't even about money. They just want to stop any sort of industrialisation, any mechanisation that would replace human jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth
railway
is,
drivers throughout the world are very, very privileged, essentially. In France, it's even more the case, of course.
commercial artists have been replaced by artificial intelligence in the last sort of 3 weeks, roughly. I mean, there are people just working on the sort of writing desk out here who can produce, like, album cover art. It's like 98% of what anyone used to produce for... I mean,
And it
I
was
don't
once
see why
thought that
railway
creative jobs were defendable in some way. And in actual fact, a lot of the jobs that people assumed would be mechanised and robotised haven't been.
And meanwhile, barristers and solicitors and nurses and radiographers and commercial artists are out on their ear. I will also just mention Simon Jenkins. I think you wrote this in the Guardian. He's an interesting... I quite like Simon Jenkins. He seems to be a bit of a hate figure in Twitter circles. But anyway, he pointed out the railways are nowhere near as crucial to the ongoing functioning of the country as people assume. People assume that they're absolutely the lifeblood. In fact, something like 6% of journeys now are made by rail, and only 8% even of long journeys, the ones you would absolutely think they are now. The vast majority of journeys are made by people in private motor cars, and quite a few of the younger people who might, be presumed, prefer to go on the coach because it's about a fifth of the price. You absolutely am not able. He is not able to hold the country to ransom. And the idea that he is able to kind of derail Christmas or whatever is actually a little bit...
So arguably, he's balling against the progress of history.
I think he probably is. Let's take a look in the mirror now, Leo.
So the mirror...
personal...
Check my tie. I'm not wearing one. Should have looked in the mirror earlier.
Shirt, though. Really nice shirt.
Thank you.
It's like it's for a VAT, the whole shirt, isn't it? Go ahead.
There is a story here. So in the mirror, they're looking at strikes, but they're taking another tack, because obviously the mirror is quite a left-wing paper, whereas the Sun is right-wing. But, I mean, they're also talking about the nurses' strike, and I think people have more sympathy for nurses than they do for overpaid, fat, lazy train drivers who don't do anything. So basically the nurses have written this letter, and they basically say, we're doing this for you. We're going on strike, resulting in your death for your own good. That seems to be the tack of this letter. I don't know, they're saying, it's vital to sort of preserve the NHS and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, they seem to be, they've been offered 9% by the end of next year, which sounds like that's in line with inflation. Inflation's probably going to come down, so it's actually above inflation. They want 5% above inflation. I mean, God, I'd love to see them try and ask like a comedy promoter for that.
The reality is nurses have a lot more... The nation has more instinctive sympathy for nurses. But when you actually look at their reward package, it is not quite as Dickensian as you might have been led to believe.
You better not get sick over the weekend. I'm treading carefully in case I slip in some ice, I
think everyone would like to see nurses capable of enjoying a reasonable quality. I mean, they do a lot of overtime. They are obviously exposed.
They get paid for it, though.
They are exposed to the kind of abuse that you're not you know, you have signs up in the train telling you not to be mean to me. You can't even get to the driver to tell him.
Have you
to
tried?
can you?
Yeah.
You know,
All that's true, and of course we see them at our most vulnerable time, and consequently there is a lot of public sympathy. But, you know, when a few pieces of electric surgery, when more and more people's grandmothers are affected by strikes, then, of course, we'll see how long the public good will last.
And I think possibly last week, we'll try and get onto the Star very briefly, but the Telegraph, which manages to cover at least 3 or 4 dozen stories on its front page. But we've done the main one there, Roger, with Sunak, but there's something down the bottom that's quite interesting.
This is the allegations surrounding Sister Space. You might remember Sister Space was the charity headed by Ngozi Fulani, who was the centre of
Nothing to do with Nile Rodgers, was it?
Palace race row. From, good heavens, last month, was it? It was a little while ago, isn't it?
A couple of weeks only, I think.
A couple of weeks ago. Anyway, apparently there are serious questions to be answered about the integrity.
She's attracted unwelcome attention. It seems like an extraordinary shot in the foot.
Well, it seems to have taken an awful long time, really, given that all this stuff can be found out by popping round to their shop, according to the allegations. Given that a lot of this stuff can be found out by just going online, it's taken Fleet Street quite a long time to get round to this little article.
There were Twitter threads exposing the irregularities in their accounting, you know, a week ago.
Yeah.
And people are just, you know, amateurs.
And they revealed some pretty incredible stuff. So, I mean, you sort of expect this stuff from charities. I was actually, when I worked for Haringey Council, I was put in charge of monitoring a charity, and they were invoicing multiple times for the one thing to all their different funding streams. So they're getting 5 times the money if they buy a photocopier, and it seems like the same kind of thing was going on here. You know, she billed tens of thousands of pounds for this website, and it was done for a £5, you know, on Wix or whatever. Yeah. And then, you know, all the stuff that's being sold, she's getting her family members to sell stuff. She herself, the reason she's got so many names, Marlene Hill, she's like Carlos the Jackal. She's got so many names because she's going. She's
like that fella in Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Also known as the Rat.
She's like doing her own account. She's her own, you know, own police officer. It's like she's
as a member
everything.
of Parliament. I mean, I do sometimes think, is it really necessary we have quite so many charities in this country? It's almost impossible to monitor them all. It does seem like a very easily hackable system.
Yeah.
So many people make a lot of money out of occupying professional positions within those charities. And the CEO of charities, major charities, earn amounts of money which people giving money on the street would be very unhappy to hear about.
And the amount of fraud. Remember what Camilla Batmangeli or whatever she's called, the one who looked like a hot air balloon, and she was, you know, and also these people are lauded. They get all the social kudos for running a charity. Meanwhile, they're just taking all this taxpayers' money and just putting it in their pocket or their brother's pocket.
She had that brilliant thing of putting the word Batman in her name, which nobody was allowed to mention. I would like to have seen what Lady Duchess in Waiting or whatever.
If she's going to be swinging from a rope, that's going to be some structural integrity there.
Let's finish very quickly with the Daily Star, who have got a different tack on the day's events.
Yeah, so a border collie has crashed a car.
That was never going to end well.
It was an English border collie, so it just has an open border policy.
Open border policy,
just helps people come in. But
I mean, they are the most intelligent dogs. If you were going to get one,
this one wasn't.
Reverse a Land Rover, that'd be the best bet. I mean,
there's a picture of him at the wheel, charmingly though. But I'm disappointed he's not leaning out the window. That would be the better.
It's probably like, what's that? Is it the Dunning-Kruger effect or something, where people who are slightly well-informed think they're experts?
Yes.
I mean, the stupid know
they're
they're
too stupid to realise that they're stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas a Labrador would know it couldn't drive a car, but a border collie would.
But they didn't leave the handbrake on by the sounds of it, so it knocked the gear stick into neutral, and so the car could roll away.
The trouble, cars are so automatic now. I only have to approach my car and it just opens all its doors flat open. It's quite embarrassing. Anyway, that's what we have got from the front pages. We have a short break now. Well, that's what you'd see in the newsagent. After the break, we get them to open up and find out what's inside. Very much like my car, it seems. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely
Right.
stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship,
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
and no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans. My comedy condiments this evening are Leo Kearse and Roger Monkhouse. So, Roger, Wednesday's Telegraph now. I think they're calling you a salt and pepper pot, the two of you. Wednesday's Telegraph, and it's not looking like a very merry winterval for Rishi Sunak.
Well, this is the news which is it's become evident over the last few polls that I've read that Labour is apparently on track, according to the latest opinion poll, for apparently a 314-seat majority at the next general election.
That is a huge swing.
Well,
I mean, that is the biggest swing in history, isn't it?
Of course it won't be, because the polls will narrow for various reasons. That will inevitably happen. But, of course, it's been such a dreadful year for the Tory government that it's not particularly surprising to see this happening.
Do you recognise the name of the polling organisation, Savanta and Electoral Calculus? That sounds like a made-up thing to me.
It does slightly, doesn't it? But I'm assuming, given the source, i.e. the Telegraph, that it is a veritable, credible
yes, absolutely
source.
copper bottom.
I would hope so. Anyway.
Peter Hitchens has a great quote on polling. I wonder what you think of this, Leo. He says, polling is not a means of learning about public opinion, it's a means of influencing public opinion.
Oh, right.
Interesting, you know? Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a bit of both, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and this also has an interest in the Scottish National Party, according to this poll, gains an extra 7 seats, which would give them all but 4 of Scotland's 59 Westminster constituencies. And obviously the SNP would say, well, this is a proxy vote on independence, and that would, you know, obviously tip them into having actually a sort of valid...
A mandate.
A valid mandate, but you know...
Something that Nicola Sturgeon has never had. Did you see it?
But yeah, I mean, 2 years is a very long time in politics. So.
It's only 3 years, you know.
Oh, 3, yeah.
Well, no, sorry. It's 3 years since the 2019 general election, which is seismic and incredible. But the fact is, governments don't last much more than 10 years ever, do they?
No,
so
it is
really
showing its age, isn't it? Even if it's a partisan. I would say, if I'm honest, I would prefer Labour to get a sizable majority so that they don't have to parlay with the SNP in order to get... I mean, that would be the disaster, wouldn't it?
After a campaign, especially after Sturgeon has positioned herself in the way that she has, it'll be interesting to see whether the Labour Party make inroads into that SNP majority in Scotland.
It seems like years ago, doesn't it?
At all.
The idea that Labour used to be a real force in Scotland.
It used to be Scotland, absolutely. I mean, all but a few constituencies, which were weird Lib Dem preserves, weren't they? In the
but the working men, the steel yards and the boats.
Very much within our lifetime. It's only a generation.
Scotland's been gripped by this mania, this sort of this single issue independence mania, and it's like, I mean, it's not been gripped, but the people, it's become enough of a sort of whistle for people to motivate people to vote. It's almost like, you know, the evangelical vote in America.
Touch of the dear leader about it.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a... anyways, that isn't the main story. The main story is that, with some caveats, it's looking like catastrophe for the Tories.
Rishi Sunak will lose his own seat, supposedly, according to this figure.
Everything north of Lincolnshire.
Incredibly.
It goes red and yellow.
Boris Johnson is apparently the bookie's favourite to replace him after the next election, hilariously.
So 2024 could be an extraordinary rerun, couldn't it?
He's sitting on a very small majority. Yes, it could be a hilarious year for Boris Johnson.
Weird. What year is this? Leo, over to Wednesday's Guardian. Nominative determinism. Sam Bankman-Fried is to be grilled by the feds.
So he's the FTX founder, founded the crypto exchange, and he's being officially charged with defrauding investors and violating campaign finance laws. So FTX was a cryptocurrency exchange. An exchange is supposed to be, you know, safe. You put it just matches buyers with sellers, so it can't lose money. But he also had a hedge fund called Alameda, and it was basically taking money from FTX, from the exchange, and then gambling with it and losing it. So they've lost billions and billions. You know, we're talking over 10 billion. And they're also embroiled in giving political donations. Like famously, I think they're one of the biggest donors to the Democrat Party. And you know, none of this.
They've also given money to the Republicans. Interesting.
As very Wall Street always do, don't they? Yes, exactly.
Very quietly. So he was trying to get. He was lobbying politicians to get them to relax crypto trading rules, which in retrospect seems like, you know, I'm kind of glad they didn't. But interestingly, this arrest actually stopped him from testifying in front of Congress. So he was on his way to Congress, and his opening line was going to be, "Look, I effed up," and he didn't get it. He would have spilled loads of beans and loads of stuff about, you know, connections to the Democrats. And
so he's just in conspiracy and him being arrested right now before he gave evidence.
The conspiracy is already there. I mean, the money laundering has been pretty well identified, you know, and the money flowing back to the Democrat Party, and it's taxpayers' money that's flowing back. It's like something Michelle Moan would set up. So that's already been identified. And
he's going to be Epstein, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, if he's still alive by the end of next week, I mean, I would not put money on him being alive.
12.
Have you seen his girlfriend?
Oh my God! Yeah. He should have had taken the opportunity. He should have had the opportunity, taken the opportunity to get a better-looking girlfriend while he was still a billionaire.
That is the weird thing.
Most 12-year-olds have to make up their girlfriends. He's doing well.
People have been analysing photographs of him at his desk in extreme detail and like really zooming in. And one thing is for certain is that he is wearing patches which deliver essentially Ritalin or something of that kind. You know, like one of those ADHD like amphetamines essentially, like 24 hours a day.
Like Hitler.
They kind of are. Like with that book, was it Buzzed or something about the Nazis all being totally
completely off.
It sounds like this section of Wall Street is operating under very similar conditions and making similarly sort of wise decisions. You know.
And what's another angle to this is the politicians that are investigating. He's donated tens of thousands of dollars to the politicians who are investigating him. So obviously that's a conflict of interest as well.
Well, watch this space. That's going to be very interesting. Roger, we go over to the Times, Wednesday's Times. It seems our constabulary are not satisfied with just discussing their private lives with Alexa listening in.
These are Chinese tech firms which I've frankly never heard of before and will therefore struggle to pronounce correctly. But they're not too challenging, are they? Hikvision and Dahua.
Hikvision sounds like it should be from the deep south, doesn't it?
and perhaps would be a glasses company. These are two tech firms who apparently... because this is the nature of digital technology, isn't it? They can tap all sorts of information which they shouldn't be able to. And because, of course, all Chinese firms are, however superficially autonomous they might be, are in fact just arms of the Chinese state, they are now in possession of all sorts of materials which could conceivably be used inappropriately.
And this is specifically sort of crime statistics in this country in this case.
This is about CCTV monitoring, so it's about, I mean, frankly, shoplifting, something as mundane as that. This specifically
but this data is just data, isn't it? They just accumulate it. And there's some extraordinary cases around the world of Huawei Huawei and so on in particular, feeding information back from massive, it's becoming like so porous.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, data can be misused. So, I mean, like before World War II, the Netherlands gathered all this data on its citizens, around demographics and religion and all the rest of it. And it was just to provide better services
and who had
to its citizens. But then when the German troops went in, they had this data. They knew exactly where all the Jews were. So it greatly expedited their genocide.
And the Orwellian vision of a dystopian, overweening state, of course, has inefficient bureaucrats processing all this information. But it's not inefficient bureaucrats anymore. It's a formidable piece of software. Consequently, all sorts of bizarre and apparently inconsequential data can be used systematically.
Yeah.
We have, I think, the most surveillance cameras of any country not in China. I think London has the most of any city not in China, something like that. Is an extraordinary amount going on. I did also notice, I just quite like the name of the place, the Civil Nuclear Constabulary. There are two words there that don't quite belong with the third. The Nuclear Constabulary. I'm sure it's just a form word. Anyway, Wednesday's Mail, Leo. This is a possible test case for the right to remain unvaccinated on spiritual and philosophical grounds.
Yeah, so 5 care home workers who lost their jobs after refusing to get vaccinated went to a tribunal. They said they turned down the vaccine due to their spiritual and philosophical beliefs. They said,
which included that God was going to protect them from
God will protect us from the coronavirus. I mean, to be honest, that's my belief as well. And so far it's worked. But who knows? But anyway, a judge has ruled that they were fairly sacked. This is a bit worrying on a couple. I mean, I understand you want people dealing with vulnerable groups to be vaccinated, to be protected or whatever. But this is compelled medical treatment. It sets a bad precedent. And friends in the NHS, they're subject to the same sort of coercion to get the vaccine. And also, care work is quite an intimate thing. You're wiping someone's bum and washing them and stuff. So, to actually take one person away and replace them with another person, that can be more damaging to more of a risk.
Especially when you're struggling to get staff in the first place.
Yep.
But I've got to say, I do feel conflicted about this. If my elderly parent was in a care home, I'd be concerned about members of staff refusing to take vaccination, although I understand that it's a right and it's something to
But we have learned since, and it wasn't entirely clear at the time, was it? But we have learned since that being vaccinated doesn't preclude the possibility of being an agent of transmission anyway. So it's not an on-off case.
We know much more about the vaccine now.
Yeah. I have to say, when we lived in a previous house in Hove, our back garden, sort of the side of it, backed onto the back gardens of a couple of care homes, and you would hear the people out the back garden having a fag break and chatting. Yeah. And it wasn't encouraging.
No, I'm sure it was.
It was not encouraging. No. Sticking with the Mail, Roger, what sounds suspiciously like a familiar attempt to reframe the ongoing story of Twitter executives being held to account for their mendacious meddling ways. That's my spin.
Very good, very good. Quite a mouthful. This is the ongoing saga of Elon Musk and the Twitter files. And this is the story particularly of Yoel Roth, which is a great name, who has been forced to flee his $1.1 trillion home.
No, million.
It's got to be, yes.
It's a million.
There's a rogue T there. Yeah. OK, thank you. So it's 1.1 million, which is apparently 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. I can't help but think he could have done better elsewhere than where he's chosen
trying to manipulate the direction of state.
I'm sorry, but that's a bizarre price. However, he's apparently...
And they describe it as a mansion.
Yeah.
2 bedrooms.
2 up, 2 down, isn't it? Yeah. Nothing more than that.
It's central El Chorrito, what can I tell you?
Anyway, apparently he's had to flee his home because Elon, naughty Elon, has shared his thesis, which kind of suggested that under 18s should be able to access the app Grindr.
And that's Yoel Roth's thesis.
Do so.
And also a tweet which he sent out in 2010, wondering aloud whether it was always wrong for a teacher to seduce a pupil.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a bit off.
He's got a history. He's got a history of tweets like that and comments like that. And this guy was in charge. Twitter had a huge problem with child sexual exploitation. Yeah. And this, despite their incredible censorship, and they focus on, censoring conservative voices, banning Donald Trump for pretty spurious reasons, they had a huge problem with child sexual exploitation. And when Elon Musk took it over, he found that the department that deals with that had been defunded. So they were completely focusing on silencing Conservatives and doing nothing about paedophiles. And obviously, this guy's in charge of safety on Twitter. So, you know, I'm just saying, sounds like a bit.
Well, when they start saying forced to flee home, I always think it's like the Kathy Newman-Jordan Peterson interview, you know, where it goes on YouTube and there's 10 million comments just going, oh my God, he handed you your ass there, Kathy Newman. And Channel 4 immediately frame it as misogynistic abuse, you know, when in fact it's just quite... I don't want anyone to have to flee their home, but obviously, you know, he's come under a degree of scrutiny for having massively exceeded his remit.
And I'm assuming that Elon Musk only retweeted and displayed stuff which was in the public domain anyway.
Absolutely. He made information free, which is what he's doing with his Twitter files. He's making information free, and some of that's controversial, some of it makes people angry. But this guy deserves to flee his home. Hopefully there's pitchforks involved.
The Yoel Roth case, we will keep an eye on that. Alas, part 2 is over. But good news, part 3 is mere moments away. We've got the Pope, not on a rope, but on a bit of a bummer. Cambridge Dictionary, no longer knowing what a woman is, and it's the hockey fight you've always wanted to see. Very much in line with the Cambridge Dictionary definition. Trans man versus trans woman. We'll bring you that in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners. Wednesday's Mail now, Leo, and the Pope seems to see the River Tiber foaming with much blood. I bet no one's going to call him a racist, though.
Yeah, so boring story here about the Pope. I mean, the Pope, well, he's a Bible guy. He's a religious guy. Obviously, he's going to be talking about Bible stuff. He says he's got a dire vision for the world with omens of even greater destruction and desolation. This is what they say. This is what all religious people say all the time.
Before the plate comes round.
It's like, he says it's a bitter time filled with the rumbling of war, growing injustice, famine, poverty and suffering. It's all right, mate. Do you want to call him in the Guardian? Like,
in recent years, though, popes have gone a bit C of E, haven't they? But actually, it's reassuring to see them having visions
absolutely,
again.
yeah. I want to see St. John the Divine and the Book of Revelation. I want to see the horror of Babylon and the muttering of tongues.
In his homily, the pontiff said, sorry, can I just quote this? Yeah. It is a bitter time filled with the rumbling of war, growing injustice, famine, poverty and suffering. But at this bleak and disconcerting time, there are omens of even greater destruction and desolation. Happy Christmas.
Yes. The Pope said, settling into his solid gold throne and brushing a few crumbs from his silken robes. This is a connected story. Poll finds 2 in 5 Americans believe we are living through the end of days.
Yes.
Do you think that's surprising, or is that just all Americans have always thought that, haven't they?
Yeah. They're evangelical.
The rapture.
A lot of them are, yeah.
It's an evangelical Christian country.
Yeah. And indeed...
polls always throw up results like this.
Yeah, that's just...
Christ himself thought that, didn't he? Clearly.
Yes.
A clean reading of the Gospels indicates that, so, OK, no news there. Roger, Wednesday's Telegraph has updated the definition of woman. I would like to see their definition of updated, personally.
Every lexicographer's Christmas dream come true, because obviously compiling and redefining words has become politically contentious and exciting and newsworthy, indeed. This is the Cambridge Dictionary, which has redefined its definition of woman as beyond adult female human being, which it formerly was. It's now an adult who lives and identifies as female, though they may have been said to have a different sex at birth. Now, it'd be interesting to know how much lobbying has gone on prior to this decision and how these decisions are made and these definitions
Well, if it is meaningfully the Cambridge Dictionary, it won't have needed much lobbying, because Cambridge University has been as captured as any institution has for some time now.
Sure.
It's becoming a very circular thing, though. I mean, definitions are difficult. They are always a little bit circular. We all work with the other words that are available, aren't they? You try and construct a sort of meaning from the words you already know. But all the weight is on female now. Do you know what I mean? You kind of go, a woman is a person an adult who identifies as a female. Well, they've only got to get female, and then it's done, isn't it? The whole thing is afloat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
You're still attaching to the idea that female indicates a biological difference, but woman is a sort of sociologically constructed, a gender preference.
It's almost as if the people doing this don't know what they're doing. What I love as well is, like, one of the lobbyists pushing to get this definition updated, Dr. Jane Hamlin, could be a man or a woman, nobody can tell these days. She probably doesn't, he or she, they, whatever, doesn't know themselves. They say these definitions are clear, concise and correct. It's like clear and concise. It says an adult who lives and identifies as female, though they may have been said to have a different sex at birth.
Said to have had... That's like basically adopting the assigned rubric, isn't it? The notion that a doctor goes, well, we'll call that one a girl, shall we?
They're just making it up based on nothing. Like there's no chromosomes.
Look at the way little hands do that. I think that's a very girly grip it's got, isn't it?
That's quite... I mean, I'd like to know how Dr. Johnson might have defined a woman originally.
Yes.
It would have been pithy and just
Cambridge Dictionary need to grow a pair, ironically. So, Roger, Wednesday's Mail, I'm asking you to help me to understand this one, because I really have... we follow in the trans thing, but I cannot understand what was going on here at all.
Oh, it's very hard to take this seriously, but this is... It's gone viral. This is a video evidence of why trans women, people who were born male, should not be allowed to compete in ice hockey tournaments with people who were born female.
But this one, even more bizarrely, this is why I'm confused. There is a trans woman. OK, we understand that is a male-bodied person who will often compete in female events and has some upper body strength advantages. But on this occasion, the person they knocked out, if I'm understanding it correctly, was a trans man, as in born of female, and now competing as a man.
Yeah.
So was this like a mixed-sex ice hockey? Because that's already insane.
I just think this is a wonderful victory for women over men. This is refreshing.
I know it's a victory for the puck. That's who it's a victory.
It certainly explains why 2 out of 5 Americans believe that the end of days is...
Really, it's a Canadian guy who I like, actually, Jonathan Kay. I may try and track him down on this. He's an editor or journalist, it says, but I think he's one of the editors for Quillette, which is a good online sort of opinion and comment source, Australian run, I think, and he has sort of tackled this one. He has been a fairly consistent thorn in the side of trans nonsense, him and Jordan, because Canada is leading the way on most of the dystopian developments at the moment. Anyway, let's get on to the next story, Leo. We have... a quick visit to my hometown to see how sane and normal everyone is behaving at Brighton University this time of year.
Well, I mean, you might guess that they're not. So Brighton University has suggested that staff refer to Christmas as the winter closure period to avoid offending students who are not Christian. Can you imagine them renaming Ramadan the no eating and drinking period to avoid defending students who aren't Muslim. It's absolutely insane. Why would they assume that, students who aren't Christian, who are in let's face it, like it used to be anyway, a Christian country, would get offended? It's an absolute nonsense. And Christmas is one of those great things that transcends religion, because there's presents and stockings and advent calendars and stuff.
If you've been to Singapore, which I'm sure you have, which is a place of so many faiths and different ethnicities, and of course they celebrate Christmas. It's an enormous, fabulous commercial festival.
Was it Lee Kuan Yew? Was that his name? The great genius, the presiding genius of Singapore's rise to fame. He was extraordinarily pragmatic about these issues. He absolutely defined everything and how it would operate, and absolutely eliminated the possibility of inter-ethnic strife, essentially. There's an absolute genius of it. Everyone should read that book, because we are all becoming Singapore, whether we like it or not.
A sentence I'd just like to read. Another phrase that could cause offence, according to the 9-page inclusive language guidance document sent to lecturers, is millennial snowflakes.
I have millennials, this time of year especially. I do have a theory about this, which is that Christianity has been naturally and gradually denatured over the last 150 years, probably since Darwin, roughly, but especially since the American century. Coca-Cola and Santa Claus and department stores. Christmas has been a commercial event and a drinking event for decades in this country. That is not necessarily immediately appreciated by Muslims and Hindus and people of other minority faiths, because their faiths are still quite robust and toxic. They actually believe in the book, and their festivals are pursued as religious festivals. So they're thinking, they get to take Christmas off as a holiday, whereas we don't get Ramadan off as a holiday. We have to... Do you know what I mean?
They'll be livid when they find out that it actually has pagan off.
Yes, exactly. This is what needs to happen to all the rest of them.
I'm pretty sure at Brighton University they get Ramadan off. The problem is, so we've got these equality, diversity and inclusion departments, and they want to... They were originally intended to be a shield, to protect people from prejudice, and now they're a sword. Now they've got to create work for themselves, so they write these 9-page documents, they attack people, they force people, compelled speech. You've got to call Christmas this. Fire all of them, make them drive the trains.
It's Eric Hoffer yet again. A quick break now, a mini Winterval if you like. We'll see you in a couple of minutes after the break.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
And welcome back to Headliners for your final segment. Roger, Antipodean news now from Wednesday's Mail. A horribly cruel fate for 13-year-olds patiently awaiting their first gasper.
Children born in New Zealand after 2009 will never legally be able to smoke under a radical plan. They're going to move the age of consent. Is that what it is when you're allowed to smoke?
Yeah.
They're going to move that up and up and up, so that
it will always remain out of reach.
Always remain tantalisingly out of reach.
So I wonder at some point
porn mags in the news station.
Yeah, but at some point they must just ban them altogether, right? That can be a transitional phase when now it'll be 20-year-olds, then 25-years-olds, whatever.
Surely.
But at some point when only 70-years-olds are allowed to buy tobacco,
that's right.
There would be very few outlets.
Infuriatingly living long lives.
Let me tell you a story about the old days.
Well, yeah, because they might cure cancer, they might cure emphysema, and then if they cure that stuff, do we get to smoke again? I don't know. I actually think smoking is rubbish. I know some people like doing it, but I think it's really stupid and rubbish, and it smells.
I was, as a libertarian, really against the smoking ban and all the rest of it, but I haven't missed fags in restaurants and pubs.
No, it's very nice to be a smoke-free environment. I have to admit, especially in comedy clubs, when if you went in with a sore throat and the room was full of smoke,
and yet it's against every principle I hold dear in many ways.
But I also I had read that nicotine, if it was isolated from tobacco, is quite a useful sort of cognitive enhancer, perk you up, calm you down, cup of tea, you know, coffee or whatever. So I did try the vaping recently. I tried vaping for a couple of weeks just to see, and I didn't enjoy that either at all. It's just that made me head swim. I think you actually have to be sort of addicted to it from an early age.
Right.
You're like deeply embedded in it. It's not something you can mess with. I think it probably is best seeing the back off the.
Yeah, and if people are addicted, they're gonna get their fix somewhere. So this will just lead to sort of black market smuggling of cigarettes and counterfeit cigarettes.
See how vaping's taken off. I'm amused to see how schools demonise vaping, but I mean, I don't know why you'd start vaping when you haven't previously smoked.
The tobacco companies like to get people addicted by the age of 12, ideally, didn't they? Historically, that was their plan, you know. And I think if they can screw that out, it will be. I mean, New Zealand seems to be an interesting test case for all sorts of.
It does seem like a joyless place, though.
It does rather, doesn't it? Incredibly wealthy, though, at the moment. Leo, Wednesday's Times. When mothers are expecting, they shouldn't expect social media to be much help.
Yeah, so they've done a study, and apparently having a support group in real life to ask questions if your new mother is better than going on social media. That's it. That's the whole story. Not really much of a story. So they measure the cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And I've noticed this. Like my wife gave birth 9 weeks ago, and so she goes on online forums to get advice, and then like people bicker and argue. Nobody wants to back down on any points, and people come in really judgmental about everything. Like, oh, I breastfed until my children were 27. Why are you stopping? You know, all that kind of stuff.
Mumsnet is like Twitter for hormonal women. It's a terrifying place to be.
Well, in knowing how kind of stressful it can be to get caught up in an argument on Twitter you didn't want to get involved in, you know, I mean, that about nothing, you know, just about the front cover of some magazine or something and whether it should be designed by AI. Something that you care about as much as your child and his health. I mean, you're already just below red, aren't you, before you even start? You know what I mean? I think there's a lot to be said, but I do think support networks, because the thing is, traditionally, of course, you would have had your mother would come in and the aunts and, you know, that whole Hillary Clinton, it takes a village thing. You don't get that anywhere. People are very isolated, you know, very often the mother is a couple hundred miles away.
But there's a lot to be said for going down your local church hall and
sharing. I thought you were going to say pub. I thought you were going to say having a couple of lagers until this whole thing blows over.
A little cigar over the crib.
The toddler pub group. Metro. And some more cheerful news for those upset by the recent surge in aspirational suicide ads in Canada. Looks like the human hatchery is on its way.
Lorks and Lordy, this is a sinister article, isn't it? This is the world's first artificial womb facility. A creepy glimpse of pregnancy in the future. This is it's just true. It's astounding. It's like Futurama or it's horrendous.
It's not been built yet. We should emphasise. This is the pipe, but there's a scientist, a serious fertility scientist, who says it will work.
Life. Should be able to grow 30,000 babies a year.
Jeez.
We
need more children, though.
Yes, that's right. Interestingly, they're kind of pushing it at the states, particularly that need more children. children, South Korea,
and especially the
Japan,
kind of women
Bulgaria.
who currently don't have children, which are the highly intelligent, professionally qualified, ambitious career women.
Yes.
Of course, those are the genes we want.
Which has completely destroyed fertility rates in places like Japan and South Korea.
We need some sort of Handmaid's Tale type system.
Well, this is more or less it, I think. Introducing
Do you think this new Hatter 30,000 cot hatchery, do you think that will have to be included in Cambridge Dictionary's definition of a woman quite soon?
And also, is it going to be run by Bernard
I do find it slightly alarming. I do think we are, we're slipping into that because it will happen one technological convenience at a time. This is it.
Yes,
you don't need,
Yes.
like a dictator with some mad scheme. You just need to be able to go, well, of course, you could use that. And the advantage of the hatchery, you don't have 9 months of walking around feeling like like you're about to topple over and horribly sick and all that.
You can select your child with all the different
Exactly.
factors.
You can just tick it all online. Nobody's judging you.
And no one's going to die in childbirth, and there'll be no caesarean section scar.
You can plan your holidays knowing when it's going to come, when it will be delivered. If it's only, you'll probably get the morning slot or the afternoon slot. Before you know it, people will be going, I've been waiting in since 8:30 this morning and the baby's still not here.
I don't think it'll be as good. It'll be like a battery chicken compared to a nice sort of Cotswold leg bar free range.
Chlorinated kids. Leo, now it's your turn. Over to Wednesday's Mirror. It begins to look at perhaps England's LGBTQ fans that have been causing all the aggro and hooliganism over the years.
So England fans have made it through the World Cup with no arrests for the first time in history. Going right back to the Crusades. This is a huge blow to national pride, I should imagine. Nothing filled my heart with pride more as a Brit than seeing my fellow countrymen throwing white plastic chairs around in a town fountain in Montpellier. This is, I don't know, I think we've sort of suppressed the hooliganism, which has made football a lot less interesting because hooliganism was always the most exciting thing.
There was a bit of edge to football in the old days. It has gone, hasn't it? When you get 3 women on the touchline discussing the game at half-time in their latest Primark outfits, and it's all...
And I think because we don't have that sort of safety valve, that pressure release of punching each other in the face at football tournaments, we had Brexit instead. So, what
that used to
down
cause?
The bubble in the wallpaper.
It's an absolute fact as well. Football fighting, the fighting after the match, that definitely raised testosterone. There's no coincidence that we again are struggling with fertility. Plummeting.
Since hooliganism was eradicated. Is that
whatever is the old days, I do miss it. But it is. I used to enjoy as well knowing that the England football fans could hold their own regardless of how the club did. The side would go and disgrace itself 3-0 down to Belgium at half-time, but the fans would level the scorecard a little bit.
Isn't it simply that, of course, there's no alcohol and the cost of going over there is
I suspect that was a very large part. Yeah, especially when you were staring down Christmas.
And nobody wants to go to jail in Qatar.
No, that's true. God, that is a very good point, actually. Yeah, like the Hanoi Hilton. I do think it's actually been more successful having the World Cup at this time of year than I thought it would. I was like, again, I thought traditionally the World Cup is but no, it's actually been quite good watching football in a pub during the winter. I've given them fair play. Roger, I think we're going to finish up now. We're back with Wednesday's Mail. The season of Christmas party snogs is back after a couple of years of COVID-induced shyness. And I will say, of course, GB News is technically an office, isn't it? So,
yes, it is. This is the horrendous news that people apparently make absolute arses of themselves at Christmas parties. Thank heavens Fleet Street has finally uncovered this.
Have you ever had an office job?
No, I've never ever had an office job.
I had one for about 3 years, 1987 to 91, something like that. And there were Christmas parties. They were, snogathons. That's all it was.
We've all, haven't we, had to marshal Christmas dues at this time of year. As comedians. And they are clearly horrendous places in the workplace. There is always festering resentment and sexual tension. It manifests itself like Halloween on one night of the year.
The girls have a couple of beers and they come at you, don't they, Ross? They get away from me.
You can't stop them. The worst ones are, of course, the middle-aged ladies who rarely get out, and after a glass or two of white wine suddenly become completely
becomes like those, what was her name? Bet Cook? Was it? No, what was her name? The artist who used to do those pictures of middle-aged ladies. Beryl Cook, yes, middle-aged ladies on Empire. Yeah, it's exactly that.
Yes, the sights we've all seen.
I do think, good old-fashioned, robust, carry-on film-style sexuality, that's what's missing a lot from the British culture these days.
That and hooliganism.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Christmas parties had both.
Yeah.
It was great.
And you got to photocopy your arse.
Yeah.
You know, fantastic. Well, I have no idea whether GB News, of course, is not quite a 24-hour news channel, and by the time we get off air, everyone's gone home, so it's very rarely that we have an opportunity for a decent snog. But all I'm saying is, if the powers that be wanted to sort of just bus in a few sort of, you know, like the stripograms, but just dressed as office workers. I don't need a policewoman. You know, I don't need a shit. Do you know what I mean? Just like somebody who looks like an office worker, and then you get off with them. Yeah, that's all we have time for. Thank you to Leo and Roger. Available on all good social media. We'll be getting some clips up shortly. I've been Simon Evans. Headliners will be back tomorrow. Leo is in this seat. Who have you got on? No idea.
It's Dapper Laughs. Dapper Laughs.
Dapper Laughs. See you
Returning
tomorrow.
to the TV.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday.